the end of the day, you're going to have to face that voice, and just don't quit. Just don't quit when it does that. And you'll be amazed doing that a few times how much stronger and more trusting you are of yourself.
Welcome back to Happiness in Progress. I'm your host, Danielle Craig. I'm an Emmy Award-winning journalist, a mom, wife, and you know what I like to say, just a person looking for more joy in the everyday. This podcast is brought to you by the Mail Tribune. You can find more podcasts at mailtribune.com. Let's get to the good stuff. I love this conversation. You know, I say it every time. My new favorite conversation. Today, you're going to hear from Sam Jones. He is a life coach who has worked with more than 300 clients, from everyday professionals to celebrities. In this conversation, we talk about setting goals, how to deal with uncertainty, that little voice in your head that says you can't, and learning versus action. Plus, there's a whole bunch more that we cover, including gaining confidence. I really think you're going to love this conversation. And he asks some really great questions to get yourself started on whatever goal you're trying to achieve. So let's get to it. Hi, Sam. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So when I think of being a life coach during the pandemic, I imagine that would be pretty hard. Tell me a little bit about what it has been like to be a life coach during the pandemic.
Yeah, I think I've definitely earned my money a lot more in 2020 and onwards, right? But I was talking to a few mentees, so people, I've been coaching quite a long time now, so fortunately I'm able to mentor a few up and coming coaches. And I said, if you're not earning your money now, like in the hard times, why do you deserve to get paid in the good times? And that came across a little bit cheesy, but it's so true. Like now what we're paid to do obviously is to take people from point A to point B and get results. You know, coaching can be sometimes a little bit intangible and sometimes not as straightforward or just a straight line, but you're definitely getting paid to get results. And I've learned a load in the last several months of this, and it's an interesting journey, definitely.
One of the things I was wondering is, what is the biggest obstacle or hurdle that people are facing now that they weren't 9 months ago or this time last year?
I think to put it in a real, like, oversimplify it, to almost put it in a box, would be uncertainty and dealing with that. That has a really funny effect on people. And this is not just people I work with, but just businesses, like organizations, everything. Uncertainty does challenge individuals, and you can respond in many different ways. People can, obviously, the natural one is to get scared. Some people get very angry. Some people can fall into the victim role as if like the world is against them. Some people can rise up. Everyone responds in different ways, and it's not to disregard any of those. It's just trying to use those in the best way you can. And as a coach, you've got to listen to those, and you've got to understand, okay, you're feeling this, like you're feeling all this uncertainty. What are we going to do about it? And it's no magic wand or magic brush. You can just say, right now we're going to use this as an amazing opportunity and let's all be positive. And it's been tough for a lot of people. People have lost a lot of money. People have lost their jobs. Furlough. I don't think anybody had heard the word furlough before. I don't know about you guys in the US, but the word furlough in the UK was like unheard of, and now it's everywhere. So it's definitely, uncertainty has been a big thing, and people have got to make some difficult decisions. But I've seen it. I can't help but be an optimist from last year. People have done some really great things with the cards they've been dealt, and that makes me very optimistic. And I'm not really big on quotes, but a big quote that I love is that wartime creates the best generals, as in tough times create the best people. And I've seen that firsthand. And I think a lot of people probably have, with friends and family, colleagues. They've seen people really step up, which can only be a good thing.
Yeah, it was really amazing in the beginning to see the small business owners suddenly put up an online shop or suddenly put a sign outside that said like to go parking and we'll bring it out to you. I thought that was really, really incredible to see people thinking outside of the box and being able to continue doing what they do best. So if someone's listening and they're like, oh yeah, that's me, the uncertainty, I'm the angry one, or I'm the scared one, or the sad one, or I'm whatever they're feeling, where do they go from there? How do you help people who come to you and say like, I'm scared, I'm worried?
You've got to go back to basics. I think part of human nature, right, or maybe I'm just talking to myself here, is that we overcomplicate things, or we try and think of exaggerated ways we can make change. And what you need to do is really go back to basics. But what does that mean specifically for the listener? That means going back to your values, like understanding what's important to you. So your core values are things that really shape your decisions, both short-term and long-term. So for some people, it might be stability, which has been hit. For a lot of people, stability has been hit a lot. So you've got to try and find stability in much smaller things. Or you want more freedom, or you want to help people. There's many different ways that you can find your values and then make decisions based off those values. And it's also taking a step back to reassess your goals and the direction that you're heading in. None of this is easy, and it's very important to communicate to listeners and to people always. There's no quick fixes for these. It forces you to face these difficult questions, but now is the time to definitely do that. If you haven't been already, and the world hasn't forced your hand, it's time to do it now, especially in a new year as we're recording this. It's to really look at, what do I really care about? So my values. What do I want to belong to, as in like the people that I surround myself with, the organizations that I'm a part of, the company I'm part of, the business that I'm building. What goals do I want to have? And why are those meaningful for me? Now, not surface level, maybe more materialistic goals, but something that are a bit deeper. What role do I want to play within these goals as well? And then like finding something you care about, like a cause, something you want to go after, something you want to change. And this doesn't, again, have to be something huge. You don't have to change the world, change your world. Like, how can you make your family life better, or my home better right now, or things that are nice and small, and just build on those things. Go back to those basics right now. It is so important. And 90% of the work that I do within coaching, or that any individual should do on themselves, is just doing the basics very, very well. If you can do the basics very well, like as a podcast, I imagine if you do the basics for your podcast, your sound, the message you put out, how you interact with your guests, if you do those very, very well, that's most of the stuff. Like obviously there's complicated things, but that's most of it. So yeah, go back to basics. If now, you've got to do it now.
I think in goal setting, especially at the new year, it's all very, very surface level. It's how we look. It's the money that we make. It's that kind of stuff. What are the deeper goals that you're talking about? How can somebody set a deeper goal for themselves?
Yeah, so definitely, like leading on from what we talked about with values, is before you set any sort of goal, what underlies most goals is self-awareness. So as I said, it's very important, and hopefully a lot of people listening to this have got a head start on this, is understanding what do I value, what are my typical habits, the ones that hold me back, but also ones that propel me forward. Like, what are my strengths? Like, we don't like to feel proud of ourselves that much, or really big ourselves up, even though we should. Like, but what are those? What am I really good at? And backing some of those. Self-awareness is something that you can absolutely get from reading books or watching videos or listening to podcasts, absolutely. But what I'm implore a lot of people to do from this is not just to get more and more knowledge about yourself, but actually to experience those things. So learn about new ways of being, new habits, so on and so forth, but go and try them out. Evan talks about taking action. That's kind of what I'm saying. But if you imagine two pieces of paper, okay, and the left-hand side piece of paper is a load of dots, and all those dots on those pages are pieces of knowledge. That's great to have all that knowledge and to be super smart. That's wonderful. But on the other side, the right-hand paper is loads of dots with all lines connected. Okay, it's just a nice, simple way of thinking of it. That's experience. That's wisdom, and that's what a lot of people were forced to do last year, and with the pandemic, is to really get out of their comfort zone and do stuff. That's the most important things for people to do now. So to get meaningful goals, you've got to really have this self-awareness and build this wisdom through action. So over time, your goals get even more specific, even more realistic, the SMART principles, measurable, all those different things. You almost have to learn by doing, learn by failing. So these goals become clearer and clearer. You can theoretically create the best goal possible. There's loads of things. Just a quick Google search will do that. I don't need to tell you that. But the key difference for people having really deep and meaningful goals for them is to build self-awareness through, obviously, first of all, learning about themselves, but then applying that and gaining wisdom from it. That's where you go. It's, again, I would love to sit here and, to be honest with you, lie to people and say, oh yeah, you can just do it in one simple step, but it's not like that. It isn't. And
Wouldn't that be nice?
it will be lovely, and there are shortcuts. There are some shortcuts, some quicker ways, but it is a lot. Comes from this action, trial and error, and you become like this goal-setting robot warrior, whatever, after extended period of time of consistent action. Definitely.
And I love that, because so many people spend so much time in the learning phase, and they're just reading and they're listening and they're not doing the action part of it. They're not connecting the dots. You mentioned some people in this uncertainty have become the victim. And I know that there is a lot of victimhood in what has occurred. If someone listening feels like they are there and they can't get out of that feeling of being the victim, how would you advise them? How do you move past that or through it?
First of all, it's to recognize that it's actually pretty normal to feel a victim in moments of your life. When the world goes against you or bad things happen to you, it's meant to feel bad. It is acceptable for a few minutes, an hour maybe, that you would feel like a victim. However, if you lead your life and shape your behavior and your habits around, I'm the victim, the world or people around me are out to get me, as much as you are allowed to do that, I pretty much promise you it's not going to be the best use of your time or the best use of your life. The first step in all of these is, like anything, is recognizing the pattern that I'm in. Like, I'm in this vicinity, I'm in this pool of victimhood, and that is so hard to do. I don't know if you've ever met people that are just completely delusional that they're living their life a certain way. I've definitely done it with my business in the past, or other things where I think I'm doing things correctly or perfectly, and I'll reflect back and I'll be like, why did I do things like that, or how do I go? It's very hard to do that, but it is worth that however long a week of feeling of being humbled and realizing you are maybe not doing things in the right way, versus staying that cycle for years or for the rest of your life and not reaping the rewards of what this other reality can bring you. So recognizing is the first thing, really looking in the mirror at yourself. If you're struggling to do that, find some people that you really trust around you and ask them for some real honest feedback on some things that might be a little bit more personal for you. It's up to you how deep you want to go. One thing I would say, and this isn't a plug, so you don't have to use a coach, but even a therapist, a coach, something like that, sometimes you need something beyond friends and family that are objective, that will tell you how it is in the right way that's for you, because that's what they're trained to do. That doesn't mean it's me. Just anyone. I think that's a good thing to do. Now, when you then you think, right, okay, I've been living my life as the victim. I've been doing all of these things. The best thing that you can do, which is probably the most overprescribed, but still the best medicine, is you have to start in small steps. You cannot go from doing something below average to world class in a day, in a week. You just cannot. It takes a long period of time, and people will probably maybe switch off from this now, from hearing that. They're like, oh no, I don't want that. I want the quick way. You have to do something over an extended period of time, so you gain that wisdom, right? So you connect the dots between what you know and then what you can actually physically do, right? So if you are willing to take small steps forward and break them down and do tiny little every single day, almost see yourself getting better than the person you were before, from maybe the victim that you were before, that's a win. It's not a win to then overtake Susan or Tim or Tom, whoever is around you. It's to really improve on yourself day to day. It doesn't mean to have a better day each time, because you're not. Some days it's going to suck. Some days you're going to regress. That's normal. But if you can see over a period of time that you're getting a little bit better, your attitude and maybe results are happening around you, great. And you'll soon look back and, look over your shoulder a month, in the future and say, wow, I'm further along than I was. Life is that little bit better. I'm orientating myself that little bit better. And that's all you can ask of someone.
Yeah, I love that. It's all about the personal growth. I think that's such a huge measure of success that we forget to measure, because we're measuring ourselves against other people and not so much of how we've grown and what we've moved through. What do you think is the most important mindset shift that somebody could make going into this new year, just for a better life overall?
I think that's very individual.
Yeah.
It's really individual. If, again, using like we said with uncertainty before, was sort of a general answer. I think one thing that the world's forcing it to do right now in the pandemic and through for most countries, tougher economic times, is to really take responsibility and ownership of what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean that every bad thing that happens to you is your fault. I think a lot of people suddenly feel that sometimes when you ask to take responsibility. It's to know that whatever does happen to you, whether it's to do with what you've done or what you've not done, or the world around you's affected you, is to take responsibility to make the best decision for yourself in that moment, or those you care about in that moment. And that is, as we talked about, make decisions from what you value. Okay, so make short-term decisions from there is to be or progress from the person you were yesterday, not necessarily better because we all have bad days, but to progress from that person. And just to be able to have some element of control in times where there's not a lot of control. The problem with uncertainty is that you feel like you have no control. And that is true that you can lose some control in some things, like if you lose your job or your business sales dip because the environment has changed and the rules of the game have changed. But if you can hone in that little bit more into, again, what you care about and to what things you can really take ownership of and move forward, you're just going to deal with things a lot better. And that's what's required. And one thing that's really unpopular, but I've had a few honest conversations with a lot of business owners in last year and starting now with sessions today, is that business specifically, or even the job market, it's a free market. It is, as much as we want everyone to keep their jobs and all businesses to survive, you have to create value for people. You have to. So you can't just be like, oh, well, I just hope it's going to be all right and I deserve this. It's not. You have to earn it. And that is more true now than ever. So you don't want to fall into the trap of, oh, pandemics ruined my business, pandemics and this. We know all that. A lot of people have had it bad on all levels, really bad, kind of bad, and okay. But what we've got to be able to do is say, how can I evolve? How can I progress? How can I take responsibility to provide more and more value so that people want to work with my business, people want to give me that job, I can set this new PB, I can, whatever it is in your life, the list is endless. But definitely take more ownership, take responsibility. Otherwise you're at the whim of the world, and it's just not a very nice place to be. I've been there, and it's not a nice place to be.
When somebody takes responsibility, and maybe you can even answer with your own story, when someone takes responsibility, what's the difference they see in their life?
Me personally, it's that I'm able to look inwards rather than outwards into what's going on. And that has a multitude of benefits, a few that we've already mentioned, but you're able to really be introspective. And I think introspection allows you to gain what we talked about, that wisdom. And it's really able to you to approach situations differently. Instead of a situation happens to me, I'm at the whim of that situation. It's, oh, I've dealt with the situation, I've learned or grown from this, and then I'm able to respond. You tend to get better outcomes from those sorts of things, from those sorts of situations. Sorry. I was like, I would hate people to think from my work and definitely what I put out into the world, that being a coach means that you're some sort of guru, or like I'm a life guru. I'm a coach. I help people get from A to B from good questions. Basically, that's what you're trained to do. And a lot of why people are coaches like myself is that they've actually struggled with things, or they've been way on the other end of the scale where they haven't taken responsibility. They had no idea what their values are. They were the non-person to be a coach, right? And I just know from being in a place where I didn't take responsibility and I thought, oh, this is someone else's fault, or why me, or get jealous of other people or envious of others. You feel very powerless, and you don't really have an opportunity to create your own story, or to write your own narrative. It's very much being written for you. So that's the real difference, is taking control allows you to write your own narrative and story. You get a lot less emotions of pity and shame and guilt and all that, and you get a lot more emotions of excitement. You do get fear. There's no getting away from that. You can get frustrated, definitely, but it's good frustration. It's good fear. It's like it helps propel you versus shrinking you more and more because the world's getting heavier and you can't take any ownership.
One of the things you said that I really liked was you used the word respond to the situations around you instead of reacting. And I think that's the difference between being introspective and really thoughtful about what you're doing and how you're moving through life versus just trying to survive and shrinking down into that reactionary person.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best way, or maybe like a really tangible tip that someone could take to make big change? If someone's calling up a life coach and they're like, I got to change this, I got to change that. Where do you start?
Yeah, I start by, for my job instantly, it's really listening. Okay. So individuals can do that with themselves. It's to really listen to what's going on and take a step back. So my job, as I said, is nothing magic. Like me or other coaches are not some like gurus or anything. Like you would think, seeing all these Facebook adverts with people outside Lamborghinis and all that, that there are these magicians out there, but it's not. It's a lot of listening, and it's really listening to yourself, and some basic questions like, what is it, if I had 48 hours to really make a massive change in my life, what would be some of the small things I would do? Starting there and just getting a simple list going. Okay, there's nothing wrong with a list. Like everyone demonizes to-do lists, there's nothing wrong with a little list every now and then. Or something like, if I was to act like the hero in my life for 24 hours, let's make it even shorter, what would be little things that I would do? And start there. Instantly, a lot of people, especially high achievers or ambitious people, go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and come up with all these crazy things. And that's fine, but try and bring it down to that 24 hours. Try and bring it down to those 48 hours. If you can do something for 24 hours and 48 hours, you just give yourself that amazing thing called momentum, and you start to build it in the right direction. It doesn't mean you've got this snowball where you're going to be smashing the rest of your life. That's not what we want to look at. It's looking at, can we build some momentum in the right direction? So asking yourself, listening to yourself and asking yourself some questions like the two I just gave you. There's a million more, and those are off the top of my head, so I'm sure there's better ones as well. Again, a simple Google, but those things you can do. But listen to yourself and ask questions. Asking questions of yourself is great because prescriptive things, like if I was to say goal set, I'm trying to think some of them, specific habits that I do that are great. It might be great for me, but it might not be great for you. I don't know the listeners' lives or anything like that. That's why the coaching world or the therapy world or other platforms exist, because you are able to see a perspective in your own way versus me telling you this is the way to do it. So really, really listen to yourself, or get someone that you know that can really listen to you and just air things. That's always a good thing.
I like that idea of the 24 hours, because I think we get stuck, especially at the new year, when we're thinking like, okay, I'm going to do this thing for 365 days and it's a resolution and it lasts for 14 days. So how does that impact confidence? You mentioned the momentum. Is there a confidence part of this as well? Like, oh, I really can do this.
Yeah, confidence is a lot about taking action. You build confidence from taking action and getting the right feedback. So if you think about confidence, or a guy called Al Bandura talked about self-efficacy, which is your belief in the attainment of goals. And a lot of it is to do with how can you, first of all, look at the right way to do things. So learn. This is what people tend to do well. They tend to read a lot about things, watch a load of videos, all that different stuff. People tend to do that quite well. But also apply those things, try it out. Okay, this is where a lot of people talk about getting out of your comfort zone, but it's true. You do need to try things out. I would love to read or watch a load of videos on YouTube about how to run a 5K faster, but what I'm going to have to do eventually is run the 5K, and I'm going to have to run the 5K quite a lot. I'm going to have to fail at a 5K where I push myself too hard for the beginning and then absolutely die a death for 3K and get like a terrible time. That is what you need to do in order to really progress forward and get things. Confidence is your belief in how you're going to behave and what outcome you're going to get. We can always decide how we're going to show up. So a simple thing for people to grow confidence straight away is just set the intention whenever you go into a situation that you're going to give it your best shot. That whatever happens, you're going to give it your best shot. Even if you fall flat on your face, you can't finish the 5K, as I said, it could be an example. Go and give it your best shot. If you can say in your mind, I gave that 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 effort, okay, which is really good. If you can be honest with yourself, that's a really good way. That should fulfill your confidence. Then trust the process. If you know you consistently put in those 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 efforts into what you desire to do, what you really feel is important to you, the results will come. You will fail along the way, but the results will come. And you have to trust that. It is much better than waiting for you to stumble upon some magic results or hit a home run. Those, few and far between. You can absolutely smash something out of the park with a bit of luck. We all can. I would much prefer living my life, putting the right things in, building my confidence and self-belief and self-efficacy with those things, and then start to see the reap the rewards.
I love the 5K example because it's so easy to see how the watching videos on YouTube is way easier than the actual, shoes on the pavement running. I love that because that's how any action is going to be, whatever it is, even if it's not really a physical exertion, it's going to be hard taking the action.
Yeah, Danielle, like just I went out for a 5K run earlier. It's probably why I gave the example. I had so many times, but I didn't want to run earlier. I didn't want to run. I finished off the session, then I was lying on my bed 5 minutes, like, I don't want to do this. And that voice is like, what? Oh, Sam, you're too tired. Oh, you might get injured. Just all these incredibly brilliant excuses. Like they're masterful. I thought, no, I've heard this. I just got to do it. Got my trainers on, got out. When I was running, I ran awfully. I was just I'm a decent athlete, a decent runner, running terribly. Feet were all over the road. I just rubbish. But I'm just going to get through it. And that builds my confidence. Knowing that I'm not going to quit really fills in not just confidence, but builds that self-discipline muscle. You build up self-trust. Not enough people talk about self-trust. Knowing that you're not going to quit on yourself is one of the greatest things to build so many things. That self-trust, building up confidence, building up discipline. It motivates you. You end up motivating yourself. You get that intrinsic motivation. I'm not going to quit. That's it. Like, I'm not going to do it. And you have to put your as you said, feet on the pavement. You have to do that, or you have to edit the podcast for you, or whatever else it might be that people have. You have to do that, and it gets easier, but you got to start.
I love that. I just want to stand up on a rooftop and shout it out, because I think we've done a lot of just collectively teaching ourselves not to trust ourselves, teaching ourselves that we do give up on ourselves or that we do quit. You mentioned the little voices in your head. Everyone hears them. What makes the difference between acting against them, not listening and going forward, and listening?
The best way to do that, I'm smiling because I was having a conversation with a client before Christmas, was having the same thing. She was getting a lot of doubts, right? A lot of self-doubts. Super capable individual. Everyone outside in would be like, this person's like smashing life. That's what a lot of people I tend to work with are. They're great. They're fine. They're great. But everyone has their little things, right? And for her, it was that voice, or that self-doubt voice. And I said to her, listen, it was to do with video specifically. We can sit here and talk about the best ways to smile on camera and to come across and to be all these different things and whatever. We can do that. Or you can just get off your ass and just do the video, push through the voice and just do it. And then set the intentions like we just talked about. Just doing the video is success here. Doesn't matter how many views it gets, how many people comment and say, wow, that's so amazing, or how many likes it gets. It doesn't matter. It's all bullshit. The key thing was her just doing it and doing that. Without being dramatic, the difference for her for just doing that video and coming through that voice, where she could quit, not do it, lie on the bed like I was talking about for the 5K. The difference was, oh, it's actually not that bad, or I can do that. The more you push through that voice and just see it's like a little tester, it's like a little nagging kid just being like, go away. And you just push through, because you're not going to die. You're not going to your life is not going to be destroyed. It's not. You're just going to get stronger and better. You just have to do that once, and then you need to do it twice, and then you need to do it 3 times. The voice never dissipates. It's very clever. It can get slightly easier, but it doesn't necessarily go away. It can, in moments, turn into something that's really empowering, and that's great. But I'm not going to sit here and lie that I never have this voice. I consider myself a confident person. I consider myself successful at what I want to be successful at, but it's still there. You just have to keep pushing through. Again, you can read everything in the world about it. You can listen to 100 podcasts, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to face that voice, and just don't quit. Just don't quit when it does that. And you'll be amazed doing that a few times, how much stronger and more trusting you are of yourself.
Yeah. I think you need the evidence that the voice is wrong. And to get that evidence, you've got to move forward. You've got to do the action.
100%.
It's times like these that I wish that I didn't turn this podcast into a 30-minute podcast, but that's okay. I'm going to ask you the last question, which is the one that I ask everybody. What is your number one tip to finding more joy in the everyday, the good, the bad, and the in-between?
For me, it's about looking a lot smaller. My default setting is to look at the world in a massive, grandiose way and see everything in huge, massive things. And that's a beautiful thing. But for me, realizing, seeing things in the tiny, in the sometimes not glamorous or non-highlight reel stuff, and almost drawing the energy from that and inspiration from that, whether it's being grateful for something or learning or just sitting with that feeling, even if it's not a nice feeling, like even if it's frustration, like we mentioned earlier, seeing the small and being able to draw from that and allowing it to propel you forward is really a great thing. So for me, it's about seeing things in the small, and then from that, letting your gut guide you on where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Sam. I really appreciate your time. I love the wisdom that you shared, and I'm excited to share it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed hearing from Sam. Of course, as always, I'm linking all of his information so you can stay in touch with him in the show notes. I want to remind you that I have just released the Hip Habits Workbook. It's 6 months of weekly goals. And really, my whole goal is to give you that confidence that me and Sam were talking about. Give you the confidence that you don't quit on yourself, that you are trustworthy, by just offering a weekly goal for 6 months that you can kind of take part in and prove to yourself that you can do it. You can find that on my website. Of course, I'll link that in show notes as well. I want to thank you for being here on Happiness in Progress.